Hello, hello, and welcome to Apple Jams, your Beatle and Solo Beatle hangout. I'm so glad to see you here. So glad you could come. I have one little baby request, and this is if you would please me by smashing a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. That would really help me if you can. So, Anthology 4 dropped on Friday, and I've been listening to it all weekend, as I'm sure many of you have. I went for the 2-disc set. I didn't think that the Anthology collection was worth it. That includes the remastered and remixed versions of Anthology 1 through 3. And I didn't go for that. I just didn't think that was worth the money. If you went for it and you bought the full set of the Anthology collection, let us know in the comments. Were the remixes worth shelling out for? Let us know. I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts. Thankfully, after the saga of the will they, won't they release Anthology 4 separately or just as part of the bigger collection, they did decide to do that, even though at first it looked like they were going to have it behind, kind of locked into that master collection paywall. Some say that's because of community backlash. Apple might say that that's because they listened to fan feedback, but honestly I think they were always going to pull the trigger and release a standalone version of Anthology 4. It just feels like they were gauging reaction to that initial announcement. So what is Anthology 4? It's a career-spanning collection of outtakes and alternative versions from track 1, Please Please Me, from their first album, right through to Something from Abbey Road, their last recorded album. Plus, of course, the remixed versions of Free as a Bird and Real Love from the Anthology project in the 90s, and 2023's final Beatles song, Now and Then. But here's the rub. Only 13 of the 36 tracks are previously unreleased versions, 15 if you count the remixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love. That definitely, for me, dampens some of the excitement for these, especially for collectors and completionists who already own a lot of the material released here from the various Super Deluxe Edition box sets. Personally, I own 2 of those Super Deluxe editions. I've got Let It Be and Revolver. I haven't bought all of them. I got those relatively cheap. But I frankly can't afford them. I didn't get them the first time round, and to buy them now, you're looking at like £100 for. I mean, the White Album one is like probably closer to 200, which I can't justify spending on that material, especially considering that it is available on streaming. So for me, it's not a disaster that this set includes tracks from those pricey deluxe box sets. But let's be honest, the hype around this release and the thrill of hearing loads of previously unheard material is definitely muted by the fact that so much of it has been heard before. So if you'll stay with me, I'm now going to go through track by track and give you my thoughts. I'm going to pick out some highlights along the way. I'm going to approach this as if I'm a genuine Beatles fan who loves the music but hasn't really delved into those sprawling multi-CD collector's edition box sets. So from that point of view, whether a track has been released before or not won't have much bearing on what I think of it with the thoughts that I give in this track by track. It's all about, these versions in the context of Anthology 4 and what that is. And of course, please do remember these are my thoughts and opinions. You may well have your own. They're all fab and groovy, and I'd love to hear them. So, if you disagree with anything that I say, put a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, and we can discuss what we all think about this new release. So starting with track 1, I Saw Her Standing There. Great song, great way to open this collection, as it is, a career-spanning collection going right from the start to right to the end. Fine. Honestly, very similar to the album version. There's as is a recurrent theme in this release. There's a few vocal flubs. Apparently, I think this was already released on Beatles bootleg recordings on iTunes. I've not heard it before, but yeah, it's fine. It's just it's very, very similar to the album version, just slightly different. Track 2, Money, That's What I Want. Almost identical. In the liner notes, it says it doesn't have. It's the same track from with the Beatles, just without George Martin's piano overdubs. So it's kind of like the raw, Beatles in the studio kind of track. Yeah, okay, fine, interesting historically, but pretty much the same. It doesn't, like, taking things away from a release track. It's kind of hit and miss, and in this case, I just think, well, okay, fine, that's what it sounds like without the piano. Not particularly interested, and to be honest, Money is not the kind of track that I'm going to go back to again and again, or really want to delve into how that came to be. So yeah, it's fine. This Boy, track 3, is a highlight as far as I'm concerned. It has been previously released, not as part of the Super Deluxe editions, but as it was on the CD single for Free as a Bird in the 90s, which I do own. So I have heard this before, and I've given this a spin quite a few times. It's a lot of fun. It's fun to hear. The kind of the breakdown where Paul goes a little bit too emphatically into one of the harmonies, and the way it kind of breaks down at the end. I feel like they're doing that thing where they're trying to guess what the other person's going to say, and so one of them will go this boy and the other one goes that boy, and then they alternate at the end. Or some people think that they can hear somebody say "das boy" or "this." Yeah, it's a fun little track, and great to have it on this collection. I think it's great to get this to a wider crowd that wouldn't have otherwise got that Free as a Bird single. Track 4, Tell Me Why, takes 4 and 5. This is a highlight as far as I'm concerned, previously unreleased. It's fun hearing them work out the harmonies, George giving John the kind of coaching on, stay at this note. And then obviously there's that false start where Paul goes, "You made a mistake. I know you did." I love anything like that, where that you can hear that they're, just loving the time that they're having in the studio and loving each other's company. The take itself is quite close to the album version, but it's the chat that makes this one a highlight for me. Track 5, If I Fell. This is another highlight. Again, previously unreleased. It's a nice alternative version of what is a fantastic song, in my opinion. I wonder what that percussion is that's at the start of it. During the "If I Fell in Love with You," but it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like something on guitar strings, whether it's like patting or brushes on a guitar string. Either way, I mean, like, I don't think that they would have put that on the final, and indeed they didn't put that on the final track, but yeah, an interesting effect that they had there. Track 6, Matchbox. Honestly, quite pointless as far as I'm concerned. Very similar to the Past Masters release. I think one difference is that it's John taking on the guitar solo instead of George on this version. Okay, fine. It's interesting to hear John's take on the solo, but yeah, practically identical to the Past Masters version in every other way. Track 7, Every Little Thing, takes 6 and 7. Okay, yeah, fairly unremarkable little breakdown. I didn't hear McCartney burp. He just kind of like goes quiet on a little bit of the vocal for a moment. I've not really got much to say about this one. It's fine. Track 8, I Need You. This one's an interesting one. It's not got that signature kind of volume pedal effect that George does on the guitar. No harmonies, and I think I can hear laughter and heckling in the background towards the end. It sounds like they're trying to put George off, maybe like giving him a bit of ribbon on one of his first compositions to feature on a record. So that's quite a fun thing to hear. Track 9 is I've Just Seen a Face, a absolutely brilliant song in my opinion, one of my personal favourites. This sounds slightly faster, I'm not entirely sure, and maybe has a different drum pattern, but otherwise it's very similar to the track seen on Help. Track 10, In My Life, take 1. This is definitely a highlight of this collection for me. beautiful take, a much softer John vocal, and the way that these voices blend in take one, for goodness sake, I just think is absolutely marvelous. You can hear that it's like most of the way there. They've clearly rehearsed this one quite a lot. But yeah, really lovely take of In My Life. Okay, track 11, Nowhere Man, first version, take two. This is nice, lovely bird style, like jangly guitar, instrumental feel. And I loved hearing the harmonies right at the start. It's really nice to hear that without the rubber soul reverb that was put over on, presumably after the fact. I don't know what's going on with the Rubber Soul box set. I'm sure we're going to get it at some point. I know it's one that everybody's clamoring for, but to hear a fully stripped back a cappella version of Nowhere Man would be absolutely fantastic. Track 12, Got to Get You Into My Life, second version. Sounds great. It's a very interesting version, great harmonies. The horns aren't there. Arguably, I'd say that makes the song, certainly from the start, with that, initial punch of da 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 da. But like, can you imagine if they'd have just, because this sounds great, it's a complete song. They could have just gone out with this on Revolver, but they always pushed. They always thought like, what can we add to just take it up to that next level? And I think that's the great thing about the Beatles, is that they never settled and they kept pushing. Track 13, a highlight for me. Paul's high harmony is fantastic to hear. It's actually a harmony that if I was listening to the song, I'd kind of like sing. I often put in my own harmonies, and so yeah, it was interesting to hear Paul do the same one. I get why it was removed, but it's nice to hear it in a nice alternative version. And I really love the extended run out with the extra bits of the tabla player that we get at the end there. That's fantastic. Track 14, Strawberry Fields. I think that this is the one of the mixed pieces. I don't know if this has been featured on the Sgt. Pepper box set previously. I think it's one of the edit pieces that they kind of either sped up or slowed down and put together after the fact to create, the Strawberry Fields that we know from the single. Yeah, it's fine. It's interesting. I mean, there's so much going on with Strawberry Fields. It's always interesting to hear how that was put together. Track 15, She's Leaving Home. So this is a highlight for me. I'm always a sucker for instrumentals. So I think on the first anthology, or maybe the second, there was an instrumental for Eleanor Rigby, or maybe Yesterday, or maybe both. It escapes me right now. But this is another example of something like that. So it's just the instrumental score from She's Leaving Home, and it's wonderful to listen to. Track 16, Baby You're a Rich Man, takes 11 and 12. This is a highlight as well. Didn't expect, Baby You're a Rich Man is never a song that I kind of think of as one of the Beatles' best, but of this collection, this is one that I've kept going back to. I don't know, maybe there's just an energy to it that this version brings out. And obviously the banter in the studio, little digs at Mick Jagger with the cannabis resin lines is, again, always fun to hear. Track 17, All You Need Is Love, the BBC rehearsal, another highlight for me. Fantastic piece of history. It clearly was meant to be for a BBC documentary because it's got some narration. I don't know whether that was ever broadcast or not. But yeah, really nice version. I really like hearing John go after one of all You Need Is Love's, kind of doing that brass section that isn't in there yet. So yeah, absolutely great version. Track 18, The Fool on the Hill, take 5 instrumental. Again, another instrumental. I love an instrumental. I think they used some of this to create the Fool on the Hill version for the Love album. So it's interesting to hear the original track for that. And it's a lot longer than we've heard previously as well. Track 19, I Am the Walrus. This is a take 19 overdub. It's interesting to hear the instruments isolated from the rest of the track, but honestly, I can't see myself coming back to this one. Track 20, Hey Bulldog, take 4 instrumental. When I saw the track list for Anthology 4, this one leapt out to me and I was really excited. Hey Bulldog's one of my like favourite straight rock songs that the Beatles did. And I ended up being quite disappointed. It's missing Paul's bass line and, you know, that drive that gives the song. And without that, I just feel like the whole thing sounds a bit flat. Track 21, Good Night. A lovely alternative version, but I'm not entirely desperate to, you know, explore the depths of how Good Night was made. Sorry, Ringo. The harmonies sound lovely, but I think this is a one and done. Track 22, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. This is actually one of my favourite Beatles songs. I really love the acoustic version from Anthology 3. That's what kind of makes it one of my favourite songs, the way that it works so well in both those very different styles. It's interesting to hear Eric Clapton kind of shaping out the guitar solo. Yeah, it's While My Guitar Gently Weeps, so it's a good listen, but it's not one that I'll be coming back to. Track 23, You're So Square, Baby I Don't Care, studio jam. I like what they mentioned in the liner notes of how Paul said he sounded a bit like Elvis, and that kind of like set off this jam where they pulled this song out. But I could live without this, to be honest. It's a fun little curiosity, but I'm not coming back to it. It doesn't take up much time, and it leads quite nicely into track 24, Helter Skelter, second version, take 17. It seems like, to me, it sounds a little looser and a bit more energetic. Maybe, I mean, for the White Album version as well, that's saying a lot, but it does seem to have a little bit more drive about it. And I do like the keep that one, mark it fab from the end of the track. So that's a great little version. Track 25, I Will, take 29. A nice little glimpse into a moment of levity during the, you know, what I understand to be tense White Album sessions, but otherwise not much to come back to here, very short. Track 26, so the longer version of what was edited down to a short intro to Revolution number 9. I think it came off the back of Cry Baby Cry, if I'm not mistaken. You can tell me if I've got that wrong in the comments. And yeah, I mean, it works really well on the White Album. Like that second disc getting progressively creepier as it gets towards Revolution number 9 is fantastic. This is a really key part of that, you know, bridging between Cry Baby Cry and Revolution 9. But as a standalone, I find this pretty pointless. I'd quite happily this wasn't on the collection, to be honest. I think this is something that works for, you know, uber geeks like myself, to be fair. But I'm only listening to it once. This belongs on the White Album Super Deluxe Edition. On here, I think it's a bit unnecessary. Track 27, Julia. Yeah, it's nice to hear John working through this track. Nice to hear the strummed version as an alternative, but otherwise this is a one and done for me. Track 28, Get Back, worth a spin for Paul's ad-libs, but honestly I've heard so many versions of Get Back now that I'm starting, I mean, I was going to say I'm starting to get sick of it. Nobody gets sick of a song like Get Back, but you know what I mean. Like between the Get Back documentary and Let It Be Naked, we've heard Get Back a lot. Track 29, nice historical moment, especially hearing George react to hearing the song for the first time. But yeah, just a historical moment really. Track 30, Don't Let Me Down, the first rooftop performance, cracking opening harmony. Did they use this as the version that opened Let It Be Naked version? It sounds very similar, and I remember hearing that Don't Let Me Down from Let It Be Naked for the first time, and that almost made it worth buying the whole album for me. That and the alternative version of The Long Winding Road. But yeah, always great to hear rooftop material, vocal flubs and all, with John getting things wrong. Track 31, You Never Give Me Your Money, take 36. Worth it for George's noodling at the end with the riffs, but otherwise very similar to the album track. A little different, but also very much the same. So yeah, not much to say about that one. Track 32 is a highlight. That's Here Comes the Sun, take 9. Absolutely fantastic to have a stripped back naked version of that song in the same way that they did for While My Guitar Gently Weeps on the previous Anthology collections. And track 33, Something, take 39, instrumental, strings only, another highlight and another George track. Again, it's an instrumental, it's a George Martin score, absolutely beautiful to hear that in isolation. Really shows how his arrangements in particular elevated and accompanied, the Beatles songs, never overshadowing them, but just taking them to that next level. Right, so we're into the remixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love. Free as a Bird first. It's fine. I don't really love how fragile John's voice sounds now. I'm probably going to stick with the original as my go-to. And I didn't like how they changed George's line. I don't understand why they did that. If anybody knows, maybe there is a good reason. I know that they did it in 2015 because another YouTuber, Dinner with Greedo, put me right on that one. But yeah, it's Free as a Bird. It's a great song, but yeah, I don't really think that the remix has added that much to it. Track 35, Real Love. John's voice feels a little stronger here than in Free as a Bird, but one of the criticisms of this I know that Paul McCartney had was that it felt like they were playing the backup band on a John Lennon song, and I think that is almost even more emphasized with this remix. Like, they've brought John much more to the front and the rest of them are kind of like in the background, kind of by the nature of John doing all the lead vocals, I suppose. An interesting choice to use a different vocal take for John as well. So instead of saying gone like some lost like some forgotten dream, he says gone like some forgotten dream. So again, if anyone knows the reasons for that, that'd be interesting to know. And final track 36, Now and Then. What more can you say on Now and Then that hasn't already been said? A sublime full stop to an incredible catalogue of recorded music. So where am I at? Overall, there is some nice alternative takes. It's always great to hear the studio banter. But let's be honest, the real highlights, for me at least, from Anthology 1 to 3 were true alternative versions and unreleased songs, of which there's nothing really here that's not previously been released, unless you count the Elvis song from earlier. So like, when I think of Anthology 1 and the highlights that I have from that, I'm thinking of Come and Get It, I'm thinking of You Know What to Do, I'm thinking of the different version of And Your Bird Can Sing, I'm thinking of Not Guilty. There's nothing like that. There's nothing. It feels like there are fewer revelations on this collection, and that's probably because so much of it's already been heard on the Super Deluxe editions. As for the remixed Free as a Bird and Real Love, I think, quite frankly, they're unnecessary. And having said that, if they hadn't done them, we'd all have been asking that question, especially since Now and Then and the great job that they did of cleaning up Lennon's voice. There was always going to be that question, well, what if you did that to, Now and Then, which, objectively are made from poor recordings. Ultimately, Real Love benefits the most, I think, but not enough to feel essential. I don't think they're going to replace the original 90s versions as my go-to mixes. So where does that leave us? Anthology 4, a great addition to the existing set. For me, it isn't as revelatory as the original Anthology series. Presumably there's only so much unheard material left, so especially from the early years when presumably unused outtakes would have been more likely to be wiped or recorded over. There's no denying as well that the buzz has been dampened down by the sheer amount of reused material from the Super Deluxe editions and that initial controversy over whether they were going to release it separately, which I think they were always going to do, to be honest. But what do you think? Did Anthology 4 live up to your expectations? Were the remixes worth it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this, please smash that like button and subscribe for more thoughts and fun from me at Apple Jams. I've got loads of plans for more videos that are going to be coming, so please do stay tuned. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.